Hawaii rental laws govern all issues related to rent in the state of Hawaii. Whether you're a renter or a property owner with tenants, it's important to understand what state law says about your rights and obligations to protect yourself from any liabilities. In this video, we'll give you an overview of what the state law says about lease agreements, required disclosures, security deposits, and evictions. We're eForms, the largest online database of fillable legal forms. Check out the link below to access a fillable lease agreement template. Let's first go over the basics. What is a lease agreement? A lease agreement is a rental contract between a landlord and a tenant. Depending on the type of agreement, whether it's a month-to-month lease, a standard agreement, or rent-to-own, both the landlord and tenant are bound to specific terms regarding the length of the lease, termination, and more. Because a lease agreement is legally binding once it's signed, breaking the contract can result in hefty fines or even legal action. Next, let's take a look at required disclosures. In Hawaii, the landlord is legally required to provide the tenant with 3 disclosures about the property. Property condition form. Before entering a written agreement, the landlord must disclose the condition of the premises, as well as the condition of any furnishings or appliances. Lead-based paint disclosure. Federal law requires landlords to provide this disclosure if the property was built on or before 1978. Identification. The landlord must disclose any person who is allowed onto the premises on their behalf. They must also provide their tax number for the tenant to file for a low income tax credit if they qualify. Next, let's look at security deposit laws. In Hawaii, the legal limit for a security deposit is no more than 1 month's rent. An extra fee may be added if the tenant has a pet. Under state law, the security deposit must be returned to the tenant within 14 days from the lease termination date. Lastly, let's go over the basics of Hawaii's eviction laws. In Hawaii, a landlord may evict a tenant under the following requirements. Non-payment of rent. If the tenant is late on rent, the landlord can issue a 15-day notice to pay or quit. This gives the tenant 15 days to pay the rent in full, along with any penalties, or vacate the property. Non-compliance. If the tenant breaks any portion of the lease other than late payment of rent, the landlord may give the tenant 10 days to comply with the lease. If they do not cure their violation, the tenant must vacate the property. Nuisance. If the tenant has created a nuisance in or around the premises, such as disturbing the peace of the neighborhood, the landlord can issue a 5-day notice to quit. Under state law, the tenant may cure the violation within 24 hours. Termination. If the landlord wants to terminate a month-to-month lease for reasons other than non-payment or non-compliance, they must provide 45 days notice to the tenant. If it's the tenant who wants to terminate the lease, they are legally required to provide the landlord with a 28-day notice. Want to learn more about Hawaii rental laws? Visit the link in the video description for a comprehensive breakdown of all things related to lease agreements, evictions, and more.